Hey, welcome back, everybody, to BackTrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and I always like a good crab, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Gooey, and I'm over here polishing the jail keys.
And we have returned to explore the inspirations behind your favorite episodes of Star Trek. Well, it's day 72 or whatever of the situation that we're in. And I don't know what podcasts you listen to, but all the ones I do are talking about coronavirus. So why break the streak? How are things with you?
Things are going okay with me. My work is considered essential. So
okay. All right, good.
My day-to-day life is pretty similar, other than work is just weirder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So it's kind of odd because, it's like work and then home is like, what if I live my life similarly, but then I was a little bit lazier at home? This is what it is.
Yeah. I work, basically from home too, so my life isn't all that different. But I see all my friends posting about all the puzzles that they're doing, or it's like I'm gonna rewatch Star Trek from episode 1 all the way through again, and I'm like, what did you guys do before? Like, you were just taking a lot of walks before, or you're just partying all the time? Because my life has I don't have any free time.
Yeah, I'm just doing a little bit more from home. So like, I've been playing. Everyone's out there playing Animal Crossing. I'm doing a little bit of that. Yeah. Playing some other video games, and I have been watching a little bit more Deep Space Nine lately, just like casually. Cool. So it's been a nice time to kind of reconnect with that show.
Yeah, I've been with the upcoming release of Resident Evil 3 remake.
Yeah,
I've been kind of scouting back through my. They've gone. All the old Resident Evil games have gone on sale at various points in the last month or so, and so through PC, PlayStation, and Switch, I've kind of assembled all the major Resident Evil titles, and I've kind of been playing back through them, inspired by the very pleasant Resident Evil 2 remake.
I thought you were saying the very pleasant Outbreak. But,
right.
I love that remake is fantastic.
Little synchronicity there. Yeah, it really is. And I'm even discovering ones that I had skipped originally, because I'm kind of like the guy that, there's things that I like Star Wars. Like, I'll watch all the main films, but I don't really watch like the Clone Wars or read the books or anything. And Resident Evil, I'm kind of like main integer guy, but I've been playing Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2 on Switch, and I've really been enjoying them because they're just a little more fast-paced. And there's the raid mode where you get to kind of just play single stages, and it's like a time trial where you have to kill everybody. And I'm just really, I love the bombastic, bug nuts story of Resident Evil, but I also just kind of like separating from that and just shooting guys in the face. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. There is a surprising, like, for a series that kind of has gone off the rails, I recently discovered that there are all these sort of games like that people swear by, and I'm like, I'm similar to you, where I played 0, 1, 2, 4, the number ones, and I'm like, maybe I need to dip into this.
Yeah, I think Umbrella Corps is the one that you're not supposed to play, though. That one's just really bad, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So...
I can't play 7. It's too scary.
Yeah, well, I haven't played it yet. I plan to, but I'm putting it off because I know there was a big reaction to... Is this Star Trek? I know there was a big reaction to Resident Evil 6, and like it was too crazy. And so
that's a bad game.
They went back to their roots in survival horror. Like ripping off the Saw movies. So now it's first person, and it's all like death traps and like redneck torture family, and I'm like, I hope this is a phase.
I have started it twice in my life and got to the point where you walk into the building and the door shuts behind you and it's completely dark, and I said, nope, I'm not.
No, this is a spookaroo. I'm out. Yeah,
too afraid.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, I was at the store today and I saw something, and I think I know now why this is happening to us. Sour Patch Kids ice cream. I think if we've done anything as a people, as a society, delivering Sour Patch Kids ice cream is probably what brought this on us.
That's some quarantine snacks right there.
I like ice cream and I like Sour Patch Kids, but like together, I don't know.
I was at the grocery store yesterday and I saw Go-Gurt, which I had forgotten about.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want to try some of that. I didn't, because I also remember the taste. I used to love it, but I remember the taste enough to know that it's actually disgusting.
Yeah. I love fake. I'm actually drinking a Propel Fitness Water grape flavor right now. I love that fake grape taste, but also having it be kind of stringy in your mouth, I'd probably pass on that.
Yeah, that's taking it too far.
I was talking with my girlfriend the other day. This is apropos of absolutely nothing other than just your connection to music. But we were talking about like lead singers that seem like high all the time, and we were talking about Tyson Ritter of the All American Rejects. My girlfriend thinks that he always looks like he's just blazed. And then she thought, and there's another guy too. And then ... We spent about 45 minutes going through every band from the early 2000s, trying to figure out who she was talking about. And we finally landed on Patrick Matthews of the Vines, I guess, also. But in between that time, we went through Sum 41 to My Chemical Romance to, I don't know, Dashboard Confessional. We went through every single kind of like pop emo band we could think of. And if we had had you there, the game would have been over.
The Vines is a good pull.
Yeah, that was a semi-deep one. And she was like, in the video, they're getting hit with lightning or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the song called? And we just couldn't figure out what it was.
Was that Get Free?
Get Free. That's the one. Yeah,
you're right.
See? It would have been over right then.
That's very accurate. I feel like I haven't thought about that band in a while, but when you mentioned them, I could picture his eyes.
Yeah, yeah, right. I think I'd also thrown up Julian Casablancas from The Strokes as well. He also looks like he needs a nap whenever I see him. But yeah, so that's what we're doing in our quarantine time. I'm probably going to get the guitar out here at some point.
Oh, yes.
But we haven't got there yet. Well, usually we talk about news in the world of Star Trek at this point, and I can't really think of any huge news stories unless I'm missing something. I would make a note to listeners who haven't checked out Star Trek Discovery or Picard yet. CBS All Access has made their service free for a month for anybody who's not signed up and wants to watch those shows. Yeah, and Picard just wrapped up, so you can get in there and binge the 10 episodes of Picard if that's what you want to do. But it is available if you want to do that.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Other than that, I think we talked before about the producers behind the DS9 doc wanting to do a Voyager documentary, which I think is pretty cool. And there's a video online that you can look up. I'm trying to think of what the YouTube name of it would be. But if you just type Star Trek Voyager 4K, some user has basically used software or bots to create a 4K remaster of original Star Trek Voyager. Yeah,
I've been seeing that for other stuff too, so I didn't know about that for Voyager. That's cool.
I'm hoping that as this software and technology develops, and it will. I mean, it's just the march of progress. We'll get to a point where it'll be economically viable for Paramount or Viacom CBS, I guess, to do this and get us DS9 remasters and Voyager remasters.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I don't know why I've never really thought of it, but now that I'm watching Deep Space Nine, I'm noticing, the quality for the first time ever. Yeah.
Yep, it's a slam on the brakes from watching those TNGs on Netflix, and then your DS9. It's like, whoa, you're almost seeing tracking lines from the VCR on it. It could be better.
It's kind of nostalgic in a way.
Yeah, it takes you back a little bit. But yeah, so I guess updates as we hear more about that.
That reminds me, I did finally get around to watching the Deep Space Nine doc because I saw it was free on some random service that I'd never used. So it's out there if people want to watch it. It's even more accessible now. Had commercials on it, but that was fine. Okay.
What's your review?
I enjoyed it. It was sometimes it was a little, corny or whatever, but Star Trek is corny, so that's fine. It inspired my rewatch. I was like, oh yeah, this is a nice trip down memory lane.
Sure,
I was like,
sure.
Yeah, this show rules. Let's do it.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's all I mean, of course, recently we've had a tragedy in losing Aaron and Renee, but up at that point, it's one of those things where everybody's around still. And I mean, except for Avery Brooks, they're all friendly and fun. So instead of just having like talking heads and like a Ken Burns tone to this, let's bring everybody in. And it's a documentary, but it's an oral history as well. It's just everybody relating all their inside stories and how they felt about taking on the roles and stuff like that. Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, and I like that the extra hook they had of the, pitching the season. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a great idea. I don't know if we'll ever see it, but who knows? We got a Picard show, so
yeah, that's okay though, because I feel like it's kind of like careful what you wish for. It sounds cool, but then when they're like episode ends on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Right. Well, we'll see. Yeah, so I can't wait for the Voyager one. I hope that they do just as good a job as they did with the DS9 one.
Yeah, and then onward to Enterprise.
Yeah, that's the one I'm really waiting for sure. Well, let's get to our featured subject for today's show. Star Trek presents viewers with a human utopia where all problems of consequence have been solved by technology or by human egalitarianism. Trek has been lauded for its depiction of a social apex for society, possibly unattainable, but certainly desirable. But as forward-looking as Trek is, it will always trail in the wake of the original human imaginary utopia, 50s sitcoms. Our subject today was a late entry having premiered in October of 1960, but it probably most accurately represents that most fictional of all utopias, the American small town. It's the Andy Griffith Show.
The Andy Griffith Show, starring Andy Griffith, with Ronnie Howard. Also starring Don Knotts.
Have you seen or do you watch a lot of like old, black and white type shows?
I don't as much anymore. When I was younger, I remember just them being on as, like at my grandparents or even my parents. So I have memory of this show, but not finer detail. So that was kind of interesting. But I also recall like I Love Lucy. I used to really like. So when I was younger, definitely picked up on a lot of them, but it's kind of faded now.
Yeah, I'm of the age where this was kind of there was 3 channels or 4 channels or whatever, and there were things that were on, and then when the things that were like the first run things weren't on, they just packed everything else in with syndicated stuff. And it was Barney Miller, it was like things like that. Everything that was on like Me TV now was just on broadcast TV. So even though I didn't like consider myself an Barney Miller or an Andy Griffith fan, you turn the TV on and that's what's on, and so you watch it. So there's like this cultural osmosis. Now that's all ghettoized into Nick at Night, and there's a whole generation after me that watched it there, and now people are watching it on MeTV. But yeah, this makes up the fabric of society, and I don't mean that like in a positive way. I mean it in an objective way for a certain selection of generations. Like, this is what you think about when you think about a TV sitcom or a small town or something like that. And I haven't watched it in a while, and it wasn't until I was watching it recently that I was like, not a lot of black people.
Yeah, no, like, I definitely thought that too.
If we've done anything good in TV, recently, it's that we have definitely increased representation of all peoples. Mayberry is supposed to be in North Carolina, and I'm like, not a lot of black people in this.
No, yeah, which, it doesn't add up for that location specifically, but okay.
Yeah. And I have complicated feelings about this now that I'm all like woke and, a socialist and stuff. But like, I don't think it was made in this way. It wasn't made to exclude or antagonize. But when you think about the fact that, this show ran for like 8 seasons or whatever, and people just tuned in, everybody watched this, it just becomes the sort of wallpaper of this time in American history, and it becomes like this revisionist history where there were no minorities, or if there was, it was a special episode, that kind of thing. And Andy Griffith is an interesting guy because, he got his start as a comedian, and his whole shtick was that all of his jokes were like, I'm just a good old boy, and when we would do this, when we were drinking corn pone and bobbing for apples or, whatever it is, that was his shtick. And then it got, he got popular to the point like a Seinfeld or a Tim Allen or whatever, where it became, a show, the Andy Griffith Show.
This is the original blue collar comedian.
Blue collar comedy, yeah.
Is this like kind of one of the first cases of like the show named after the guy that's like a sitcom about a guy with the same name as him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. It definitely sort of set Lucy was before this, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But that's been a thing for a while, and I don't know why it's still a thing.
It is. It's just weird.
Other than just, when TV first came out, the executives were like, "Oh my God, it's a glowing box. Now we got to get people to look at it, but we don't need them to think at all." So yeah, the guy's name is Andy or Lucy, but you'd think after 70 years or however long TV's been around, like we could handle the fact that somebody's name isn't the exact same name as the person.
Yeah, but audiences are a little bit more sophisticated, I guess.
I guess so.
You would think, but I don't know.
But yeah, and like the way that there's a stereotype about a TV executive, and the way that you think about TV executives, like they're like mayflies because they sink or swim based on whether their stuff is good or not. And then when your stuff isn't good, you're gone. So you'd think that there would be a turnover of like ideas and trends. And we do see that in, Fear Factor, or like reality shows are big now or whatever. But the fact that this weird persistence of, no, you get a comedian who's already established, you put them in a role where they're playing themselves, they have the same name, Jerry, and then you surround them with a cast of like wacky ne'er-do-wells, and you've got a show. And it's worked for like the existence of TV. It's back to the Honeymooners.
Yeah, it's just like good. It's just like junk food that people, keep coming back to it type thing. So
that must have been a studio note on the Honeymooners. It's like, why isn't his name Jackie? People are going to get confused. Who's this Ralph?
Maybe it's the executives. They can't handle it.
Jackie Cramden. That's too mouthy. I don't think so.
I'm confused. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about later why we're talking about this. But the episode that we watched for this was an episode called Cousin Virgil. And it's a second season episode of Andy Griffith, so it's still a little early. It's in black and white still. Opie isn't in a rock band, and Don Knotts is still on the show, but it's kind of early in the show. And what blew me away when I was looking at the episodes is that, they're 20, 25 minutes long, which is standard, but there's like 30 or 32 episodes per season.
Yeah,
like,
I think 31 in that season I counted, which is insane. But I thought, like, what else are they making at the time?
Right, there's very little competition. Yeah.
There's 3 channels. You got to fill up a good chunk of the year. So why not just crank them out?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a typical day in Mayberry, and Andy and Barney, Fife, of course, his deputy, are waiting for the bus to arrive because Barney's cousin Virgil is coming into town.
Yes.
And it's no spoiler to say that generally the stakes are about as low as they can possibly get on every episode of Andy Griffith. Like nothing really.
Yeah.
Like viewers voted the pickle episode like the most, the best episode of the series. And it's just about like, do we tell Aunt B that her pickles are bad? And that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the appeal though, right? Is the like, it's sort of a chill show, a hangout show, Getting away from all your worries, yeah, I guess. Yeah, just the worst thing that could happen is some meat falls in your lap,
Yeah, which, speaking of which, Virgil is played by character actor Michael J. Pollard, who is very young. He's just a teenager at this time. And, yeah, he's a real, he's a screw-up. And it's that kind of screw up where, I mean, he's part of the Fife family, so we should have expected this, but everything he touches, something goes wrong. It's like he's cursed. And the young boy is, apologetic about it, but it's like, what do I really do with myself? And, there's no way to stretch this out. Like, the episode goes on, he screws this up, he screws that up, until eventually we're presented with a problem, which is he's wrecked the jail keys by polishing them too much. And Otis, the town drunk, is stuck in the cell, and he's got a job interview. We got to get Otis to this job interview, which I'm guessing doesn't go well because Otis doesn't suddenly become the sober guy for the rest of the show.
No.
And Andy talks to Virgil, and he hears that Virgil is good with his hands, but he has anxiety, which they didn't call it that back then, but that's basically what it is. And he tells Virgil, go ahead and get this open and, just take all the time you need. Virgil does, because he's got a way with tools in his hands, and everybody celebrates him as the hero, and we get some hope for Virgil in the future. Maybe he'll be all right. He won't return to this show, but maybe he'll be all right.
No, I mean, he probably fell in a hole somewhere or something. But
well, we know what happened to him. We'll talk about that in Star Trek.
Oh, fair enough. That's canon, actually.
Yeah, right.
You just made me realize, actually, because the whole thing, his whole issue he had was with when people are watching him do stuff. He gets real nervous or whatever. But
sure.
he was by himself polishing those keys.
Yeah.
It's not like that was a big ask, Virgil.
Right. It's not like somebody was watching him and like, are you sure those are clean enough? Yeah, do it a little more.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. It was interesting. It did remind me of Star Trek in a way, just because it had sort of like, here's a little morality tale, or something like that. It's like, anyone can be useful. It's basically how I felt it was.
Yeah, there's a whole like mass communications like paper or essay there about how the 3-act or 5-act structure of TV, I think, leads you to having. It's not like they wanted to be aggressively moral, or maybe they did, but I think it leads you to that kind of story because it's easy. You present a problem, you see the complications of the problem, then you have the character solve the problem, and everything's back to normal, and we can just hang out in the sheriff's office, And so you see that in Star Trek, you see that in Bonanza, all these old shows before they invented, serial storytelling for TV,
right,
are like that. They all have this kind of moralizing thing. And I think part of it, maybe it's like a reflexive thing, like part of it might be that the morality of the 50s and 60s was let's have some didactic lesson to be learned, but also it just makes it easy to make a 20-minute or 40-minute story.
Yeah,
that's my thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
No, I can buy that. It's more than just, because I'm sure there is just an element too of like you talked about his style of comedy, Andy Griffith, so I can see how that could be on the surface like, hey, this is a good way to kind of just like tell people some morals that I want to give them. But I totally could see how it's like a double-sided thing where it's like, that's just the easy thing to do anyway,
Right, yeah. The complications are, in this episode specifically, are business that's basically given to poor Virgil to do. So he's got a card trick he's going to do, and of course he does it terribly. He dumps the roast in Annie's lap. He crashes the squad car. And it's all kind of... I know no shade on Michael J. Pollard as a comedic actor, but it's all like these dogs are kind of shaggy. These dogs need a haircut. Like when the punchline finally arrives, it's like, okay, it's not like a knock it out of the park joke.
Yeah, I was trying to tell. I was like, am I not getting it because it's like from a different era, or is it just not funny? Sometimes it was funny.
Yeah, you know what? You know what a funny show is from this era? Mr. Ed is a very funny show. Yes. I mean, Dick Van Dyke is hilarious.
Sure, yeah.
Mr. Ed is a really funny show. You think it's like this ridiculous, stupid premise about a talking horse, but the dialogue is great, and the situations that Wilbur and Ed get into are somewhat similar to this, but they have like these really great payoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's like a dearth of writing ability, but it's probably more just, I think, like we pointed out, people come to this show, because the Cuban Missile Crisis is happening on the other channel. And so they just
Right.
want to relax and see some, like, quote unquote, down home sort of entertainment, which, of course, has evolved into the bane of our existence in the 21st century. But
Yeah, it's still
everybody, it wasn't like half of the country was watching Andy Griffith. Everybody was watching Andy Griffith back then.
there. Yeah, totally. One thing because I was just reading about it, reading like Wikipedia and stuff, and one thing that they mentioned about the show was that it itself was trying to be like hearkening back to, an older era itself, even though it was set in contemporary times. That's like one of the main things they say about it, which I think is, funny, again, mentioning the race issue we mentioned.
Yeah.
But I guess what's funny about that is now it's like, it's like a double version of that, because the show itself has become that. So it's like these ideas and evocations just keep getting recycled over and over.
Right. And I don't know, like, we have to sort of put like our John Birch Society hats on or whatever, but I have to feel like, now that the culture war is blazing on every front, it's more pointed in this century, this millennium, when you've got a Hallmark Lifetime movie or something like that that's telling you that you city folk, they got to slow down. Some woman leaves her high-powered lawyer job to like pop out babies for a carpenter or something like that in the country. That's got an agenda. Whereas this, I don't know. I can't tell. I wasn't alive then. Maybe there is an agenda here, but it certainly is casting itself as, this is, go down to the fishing hole.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a specific agenda, more that like it's the norm.
I'm wary of agendas, man. These days.
I think it's just the status quo, and it's that can be harmful too, whether they know it is or not, So it's one of those things where it's like they just think they're going down the fishing hole, but there's more to it than that.
With that iconic song.
Oh yeah,
the whistling song.
I'm not going to do it now, but you almost want to.
Yeah. I didn't do a survey of other shows that were on at this time. I mean, we mentioned Lucy and shows like that. So I don't really know what it was competing against or the niche that it was trying to fill in the American TV landscape. But, in one decade, we certainly went from carefree fishing holes to like serious topics and like serious exploration of social issues on TV, and not just in serious dramas like, Naked City or Peyton Place or something like that. Just in your like Star Trek, Star Trek, you would think of is as an escapist sci-fi drama, but instead they're doing episodes about racism, and they're doing episodes about, euthanasia and all kinds of stuff.
Was that outside of Star Trek? There's more going on like that? Because I'm just a little bit more unaware,
Oh, certainly. Like, boy, now I'm trying to reach into my
give us
my TV head, and I'm not ready. But even like the show that Roddenberry did before Star Trek, the Lieutenant, was a procedural, a police procedural, but it dealt with similar themes that he was interested in and carried into Star Trek, which was racism and social ills and all the things that he wanted to eliminate in the Federation, but then still explore on alien planets in the original series. So yeah, like we said, I mean, the TV and entertainment, and drama, just in general, since the dawn of human civilization, has been about exploring these things. But that's what makes it weird that Andy Griffith is just so toothless when it comes to stuff like this. Like every once in a while, a bank robber, will take, I don't know, Barney hostage, but it's like a funny bank robber, Or I think at one point Barney dates a Hispanic woman, and there might be a little bit of tension, but yeah, Hispanic people were okay. It's so ironic that Hispanic people were okay in the 50s and 60s because of Zorro, the TV show or something, but now like they're the enemy. So who knows how racists work?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's just always got to be something like that, You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like if you look at any decade, there's probably like a popular show that is just the like, let's not think about
just like
anything.
An anodyne. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously on top of the regular sitcom, like, let's not think about anything, you know, like this is like the double layer of that, where it's like, no, this is just the good old days.
I suppose
I can't really think of something that I feel like even like Home Improvement sometimes would you know, do serious subjects and stuff.
Maybe it's more. I think Andy Griffith that's the whole premise, whereas what you're describing is maybe more just an element of certain entertainment now. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
far be it from me to cast aspersions on the amazing Fast and Furious franchise, but it's not like they're fighting for anything, right? Like whenever they win, they go back and have a cookout, and they're like, "This is what it's all about. It's family.
It's about family.
It's drinking beers and having this like simple American life." And then you make me, or like the Transformers movies and the way that the heroes are Mark Wahlberg or whoever, but it's also like flags and sunsets, and the American military is coming in to fight these Decepticons, right, or whatever. That's what we're fighting for, boys. That's remember Bloodshot? You saw Bloodshot.
Yeah.
At the beginning of Bloodshot, he comes back from his mission, and they're on a tarmac getting off the C-130 in the sunset, you know, and then his girl is there, and he's like,
"This is what it's all about,
yeah."
Boys.
And screw it, I'll just ruin Bloodshot. But when we find out later that the first part of the movie is all fake, I think the movie wants to have its cake and eat it too, because there's kind of a commentary in that we find out that the Indian kid has programmed the simulation and he watches too many action movies. And so maybe those are self-conscious elements, but you're kind of delivering those elements at the same time. You're still making the first part of the movie a Transformers movie.
I hate that sometimes too. Like, there's a way to do it well, I feel like, but I really dislike typically when something is like writes a line that's like really generic, and then they go like, "Hey, that's really generic," you know. It's like, that's just bad writing, I think.
Yeah, there's a show that I really recommend. We're way off track, but I mean, it's 20 minutes of Andy Griffith. What do you want? There's a show that I really recommend that just came out recently on Sci-Fi. It's called Vagrant Queen. And
yeah.
It's kind of a Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, you know, space show. It's like funny but action. And they're part of what the main character's thing is that they're kind of a jokey Chris Pratt type. You know, they shoot a guy and then you have a one-liner, but her one-liners aren't very good, and it's written into the script. Like she's like trying to think of good one. Like she'll shoot a guy and she'd be like, "Well, you gotta put a plug in that," and the guy's like, "That's not very good." And she's like, "I'm working on it." And that's a bit, but I'm also thinking maybe they couldn't come up with any good bits, so the bit became we can't come up with any bits like you're describing.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something to it that it's definitely a fine, you know, line to walk. Like, it's possible to do this. I think Guardians of the Galaxy does it all right, but you know, truly the most inspired, like, you know, insane one-liners, like, you're gonna have to actually do the work and watch the latest Rambo Last Blood, you know, or something like that.
Oh my God.
Like, you have to actually go to the source of these things to get the good stuff, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The ones that are just truly out there, and they're not, and it's sincere, it's earnest.
Sincerity is the most important part, because the king of one-liners, Arnold Schwarzenegger, had, you know, a bevy of writers, but people like, you know, Stephen E. D'Souza or whatever. He would just write a line and you deliver it, and it doesn't matter. At the end of Commando, he, you know, kills the guy with a steam pipe, and he's like, "Blow off some steam, Bennett." It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, and it's frankly kind of dumb, but you just buy it because he's totally committed to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you break and go, "Ooh, was that good?" And now you're doing this whole meta thing about like whether your dialogue is any good or not. I should say it's you should watch Vagrant Queen. It's a fun show, and I think it's got a lot of potential. And it's, speaking of the culture war, I think it's important for people to watch it, and if they like it, say they do, because it's currently got a 3.6 out of 10 on IMDb, and that's all review bombs, because it's made by it's based on a comic book made by an LGBTQ creator, and, you know, the fuck nuggets are coming in to try to screw things up. So,
wow, we got to get in the
It's free on
trenches.
YouTube. Watch it on YouTube.
It is.
Spend
really?
an hour of your life, yeah, and then upvote it and leave a comment.
Okay, wow. Okay, I'm going to check it out. If it's that accessible, I have no reason not to.
For sure. Back to Mayberry. Michael J. Pollard would go on to be a character actor of long standing, and he sadly died just last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a face for character acting.
Absolutely does. Yeah, he's in one of my favorite movies. Speaking of movies that are ridiculous, but you just got to commit, Tango and Cash is one of my favorite bad movies, and he's in that. But it's weird. There's a weird quality about his acting, and I think it works for him, but I think it could have just as easily destroyed his career, is that he seems incapable of, like, holding a face. He always seems like he's kind of outside of what the milieu of the show is.
Yeah,
you know?
I totally got that, especially in the Andy Griffith Show. I couldn't tell sometimes if it was working in favor of this specific episode or not.
Yeah,
like where I was like, I don't know. The comedy was weird. Yeah,
he backs the car into the house and gets out, and the beat is, you know, the wah 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 wah, like music is playing, and we cut to Andy, and he's like, oh boy, and we cut back to him, and the face should be like, oh no, but instead he's kind of like smiling, and he looks kind of evasive, and it's almost like we've pulled somebody in who's like not an actor to do this, and yet I've seen him in other stuff, and I know that he's a good actor, but I don't know if it's like, I don't know if he feels like he's above the material. Do you know what I mean? It just almost seems like he's embarrassed. Like maybe he's because he was a very method, like naturalistic actor. Maybe he's so naturalistic it doesn't fit the outsized world of Mayberry. It's like if you put Brando in Mayberry, it'd be like, what's this guy just doing walking around in this fake town?
Part of me, I don't know. I was partially thinking, like, is this weird? Because I thought, like, maybe he was playing him, like, as he's, like, autistic or something. Like,
I think it kind of reads like that.
Yeah, but
before they had a word for it.
Yeah, because that makes sense if that is the case, because it was like, you know, this very, like, simple diagnosis of him where it's just like, don't look at him, you know.
Everybody turn around. Yeah.
But I guess in a way it could be seen as, like, uplifting to be like, if you meet someone on their level, you know, their needs, you know, that's good for them. But part of me felt like even a guy like this could be useful. was what I got out of it at the end. So I don't know. I was a little. I was troubled by his portrayal at times, but I can appreciate what you're saying. Like, maybe it is more naturalistic or something. Yeah.
Well, I credit the show creators and writers, because normally, you know, on a given episode of Andy Griffith, if you've got a guest star, and the guest stars got pretty famous as the show went on. I'm not sure they had a lot of famous people this early on, but you would have somebody come in. They're probably a character actor or also a comedian, and they would be, it's the snake oil salesman, you know, and he's trying to sell, Aunt B really wants this tonic or whatever, and Andy's like, I don't know about this guy. But yeah, they take this actor who's very, like, sort of naturalistic, and he's got an interesting portrayal, and they put him in this character where you could see this being played differently. You could see it, a kid comes in and he's like, well, I'm just like an Eddie Haskell type or something like that from Leave It to Beaver. Like, it could have been played differently, but him attacking it in that way, and I don't know if it's supposed to be, like you said, like a spectrum disorder or something, him attacking it that way gives it a different character, and it makes it stand out more than, you know, the scenario I described before. And I think that gives it literal character. It makes it interesting.
Yeah, because it could be could have gone way over the top with it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's Goober. That's Gomer Pyle. That's like characters that they bring onto the show later once Don Knotts is gone.
Yeah, and I guess it sold the sincere moments a little bit more.
Yeah.
It made the comedy very weird, like the crab thing you mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell, I was like, well, the laugh track or whatever, the audience is doing a lot of work here, maybe, or maybe I'm just not getting it. That was when I was really confused.
They got this close to inventing cringe comedy before it was invented. Because there is a moment where it's like, was that a joke? And then no, we're on to some other goofy thing.
Yeah, then because there was like a pop for that, a laugh for that, and then dot, and then there was like an actual punchline,
right,
to the joke about how bad the joke was. I think they did the like, here's a bad joke, and now if we're gonna make fun of the bad joke.
Because this kid doesn't know how the postal service works or whatever, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did like, good. Before they, when the bus comes and he's not on it, and they're like, well, I guess we're going to have to do some backtracking to find him. I'm like, hey, backtracking.
Shout out. Maybe we can modify that clip.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we got to cut this out. Anything else to say about Cousin Virgil or the Andy Griffith Show?
The funniest joke in the episode, genuinely hilarious, I thought, was when he pranked Barney by putting his blanket under the legs of the bed he was sleeping on. Yeah,
that was good.
Just good prank humor there.
Good old-fashioned prank. Yeah, harmless prank. I like this show, like we said, went on for 8 seasons. It also spun off the somewhat shorter-lived Gomer Pyle USMC, which is like, hey, the military's funny.
Yeah, that's its own genre of comedy, for sure.
The Doors plays in the background and starts to get subtly louder. The Marines.
About singers who always
it's funny.
Look like they're high.
Yeah, so I think people kind of fell out of love with that show when it ended in 1969. And then it spun off Mayberry RFD, which is basically just more of Andy Griffith, with just no Andy Griffith.
Just without him.
Yeah.
That I can't see that. I've never seen that, but I can't see that playing as well to people.
The last episode of Andy Griffith basically set it up. And so it was like a, backdoor pilot. And then it's basically like, what if Floyd the Barber and everybody else was the main character? And it's, okay. It's more of the same.
Did it go for a while?
3 seasons, I think.
I feel like in that era, that's bad.
Yeah. We were talking about the sort of feeling or the sort of detachment that this has from the events of the 60s, which are piling up faster and faster. It makes me think of like Happy Days.
Okay, yeah.
Happy Days was originally just a segment of a anthology show, but then was turned into the larger show, Happy Days, which ran for 10 seasons. So that, of course, sort of helped usher in the 50s nostalgia that we had throughout the 80s. Yeah. So people are always looking behind. They're always looking back. Of course, we're called BackTrekking. Who are we to talk?
And it's kind of like that one episode of Deep Space Nine where Cisco doesn't want to go into the hologram and, hang out.
Oh, the casino. Racism. Yeah. Oh my God, that's one of those things. Like, I know that people love past tense. They love the Far Beyond the Stars. They love like the social commentary that really is strong in DS9. But that almost breaks the show. Like, it's literally like a black man in the future going, I'm not going into some racist casino where I wouldn't even be able to go into if I lived back then. Screw that. It'd be like a Jewish Starfleet officer being like, I'm not going to do your concentration camp sim. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's I kind of like it though. I kind of like that they're like, let's just make it our own thing,
Oh no, they own it for sure. But that's like one of those things where it isn't like a guy, an alien with black on one side of his face and white on the other side. Like,
yeah.
He's literally just, and Far Beyond the Stars is like that too. Like if you want to hear the N-word on a Star Trek show, there you go. It's literally just, there are no aliens. This is real racism here, people.
Yeah, it's definitely more challenging than anything that could ever be on the Andy Griffith Show, for sure.
Yeah, we would. We'd never do that on the Andy Griffith Show, that's for sure.
I feel like the philosophy of these shows is almost like, is it Cassidy who maybe says it to Cisco or whatever, of like, this is kind of like an idealized version of it, you know?
Yeah.
So even in this show, in Andy Griffith, where they're still forgetting, it's not really idealized, but it's at that time their idealized version of, you know, this time. Or Happy Days, I guess, is a better example because it's actually a time throwback, you know, where it's like, yeah, things were great then, right?
Yeah, and the worst thing that happens is like Fonzie crashes his motorcycle. I want to see the holosuite version of Andy Griffith that's not the sanitized version, you know, and Otis gets drunk and runs over Aunt Bee, you know, and like Barney dates a black woman, you know, but then he gets run out of town for that. And
that would be a good, well, I was going to say that'd be a good Star Trek premise, but then that would be one of those things where we'd be doing an episode on it and we'd be like, they already made this episode of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, they did. It's called Real Life, and it's a Voyager episode.
Oh, there you go.
It's the one where the Doctor creates a family that's essentially, oh man, I'm giving away a future episode here, where he creates a family that's like a sitcom family, and then he shows it.
Seen that.
Oh, it's a really good episode. He shows it to I can't spoil it now. He shows it to he shows it to Tom Paris or somebody, and Tom Paris is like, this is not you made like an episode of Leave It to Beaver. Like, this is not a real, you got to put some more complications in the program, and
Whoa.
he does, and then we see like the effects of that happening. Yeah, you have to watch it. It's a really good episode.
We have to do this. I feel like this is doable. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll find something to pair it with, I'm sure.
It'll work.
Okay.
I mean, if we could do this episode, we can do anything.
Right? Yeah. Well, while we work on that, I guess we'll take a break, and we'll be back in just a little bit with more BackTrekking.
Hi, I'm Mikan Hana.
And I'm Caliban.
And we're the hosts of the Sailor Noob podcast. I'm the expert.
And I'm the noob.
You're talking into the wrong end of the microphone.
Aye, aye.
Okay, every week we watch a new episode of Sailor Moon and learn about monsters, fashion, food, culture, and of course, the sailor warrior of love and justice, Sailor Moon.
All right, now, what is her rank? Is she an admiral or a rear admiral?
Okay, shh. The ad's almost over. We're a couple of magical people, and every week we Moon Prism Power make up a new episode.
Ready or midships, steady as she goes.
Please stop that. Sailor Noob is available every Friday on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Shiver me timbers. Okay, we're back, and it's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. And Star Trek has been around for a long time. It's reached impressive heights in terms of storytelling and social commentary, basically going from there'll be no Tribble at all to there are four lights. And the original series is often mocked for its Spock's brains and its Mugatos, but Trek's first series was crafted by some of sci-fi's greatest minds and some of TV's most skilled creators, and it was capable of delivering shocks and delights of human drama like the ones found in the first season episode, Miri.
Captain's log, stardate 2713.5. We have made an astonishing discovery, a planet which apparently is an exact duplicate of the Earth.
Don't hurt me, please. It's already starting. I knew it would. It'll spread all over you, and you'll yell, and you'll try to hurt everybody, and then you'll die.
This is the vaccine?
It could be a beaker full of death.
Before you watched Miri, had you watched Miri? If you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I knew exactly which episode this was.
Okay, all right, sure.
There are some very unforgettable elements of this episode, I will say.
I think it's always hard to remember, exactly when you saw something like an old Star Trek episode, because I've seen them a lot, and I was very young when they were around before. But I remember seeing it, I think, as a kid, because I had a real icky thing as a kid. So anytime anything was like a wound or something weird, and I remember the sores that they get, from the disease, and being grossed out by them.
They're pretty gross. Yeah,
they're gross.
They look cool though.
Yeah, it's probably just paper mache or whatever, but it's an interesting idea, and it probably would have. I don't know how the Parents Television Council or censors worked back then, but I'm sure this is something that probably got a second look from the censors. Is this too gross? Should we do this?
Was it? Did I read this episode was banned in the UK or something?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess
the BBC got complaints, and if you think that Americans complain about things, British people complain even more. So it did get. Knocked. I'm sure it plays now, but yeah, it was originally knocked out of repeats.
Yeah, it's this episode's interesting because it's trying to figure out what is the thing that upsets you about it, because they're depending on who you are, like you mentioned your thing, there's a lot of things that could be weird you out about this episode.
There are 4 episodes that the BBC sort of shut down. This was one. Plato's Stepchildren was another one, which is troubling because I'm guessing it was because of the interracial kiss that it was banned. Yeah. The Empath. Why the Empath?
Which one's this?
That's the one. Well, that's a 3rd season episode where Kirk Spock. I think it's Spock. I know McCoy and Spock and Kirk are taken to this void where these aliens are keeping this woman who can't speak, and she's kind of empathic. And yada, yada, yada. The woman basically has to give her life for them, and so they can be released. And it's terrible. It's a terrible episode. But I think maybe she gets some gross, ooey stuff on her. And then
it's just a little too gross.
Yeah, maybe. And the last one was Whom Gods Destroy, which is another one that's what was the problem there?
Maybe those were just ones they happened to see, and they're like, well, these ones must be worse than normal. I don't know.
You know what it is? So the BBC's problem in the 70s and 80s was depictions of madness, torture, sadism, and disease. And I think Empath is probably torture or disease, and madness is definitely Gods Destroy, torture, and I don't know, there's a green dancing girl in it.
I get it. Madness is hard to handle.
Can I play
one of the ratings warnings or whatever on Netflix when I pulled this one up, it was for fear. So I appreciated that warning, because I like to know when there's fear in the content I'm consuming.
I watched Take Me Out to the Holosuite the other day. Totally innocuous episode of Deep Space Nine. And in that, the Netflix warning was violence, sex, nudity, fear, substances, language, and gore.
Wow. Is there is it when Worf is death to the enemy or something?
And it's not series wide, because I watched another episode and it was not that. So where's the sex and nudity and gore in Take Me Out to the Holosuite? What are they talking about?
Is there there's a one-off line and that qualifies it?
I sure love sex, nudity, and gore, but baseball's a close second. I have no idea.
Wow. Yeah, that was just one thing that I noticed is I don't know when they do these ratings, but I watched this episode. I watched Miri, and it was rated whatever for gore and fear, and that was it. And I was like, okay, we're in for a light ride. And then I pulled up an episode of Deep Space Nine, and the list was covering part of the screen.
Right? Yeah.
Weird.
This episode is one of those episodes that features In what is ultimately a budget-saving measure, Hodgkin's law of parallel planetary development, which basically means they pull up to a planet and they go, huh, it looked like Earth. Is there going to be an explanation of that? No, there will never be an explanation of that. This is like one of 3 or 4 parallel Earths in the series. Not even counting like the Chicago planet, or when they go to a planet and they just have like general stores and stuff.
Those are like at least explained, right? Like, isn't it like something? A Chicago deep dish pizza landed here.
Oh my God! They're at war with the New York style pizza planet.
Whoa!
The pizza wars have consumed our civilization.
But yeah, this one I don't know. I feel like I was expecting an explanation at some point.
Yeah, I think generally when that happens, it's just we don't feel like making a matte painting of a new planet this week, so just throw Earth up there.
Wow, I don't know, because I feel like that. I mean, definitely what was happening to them down there was really interesting.
Yeah.
But I feel like the fact that it's just another Earth is like more interesting than any of that.
Yeah, and it serves to sell a lot of what's going on because you really relate. I mean, you should anyway, because it's, something, Spock, everyone's human. Like all aliens we should have empathy for, but like making them basically just human means that the disease can plausibly affect our human characters and not affect Spock. And and also you just like, okay, sure, they've got a school, they've got kids, they've got tricycles, like we kind of get the planet. There's nothing to buy except this crazy idea of all the adults being dead.
Yeah, especially because they're like, they say it looks kind of like whatever, the 60s or whatever. So if you're watching at the time, it's like exactly what things were like,
right?
Like it's like right now,
Yeah. And you should know, because the reason that we're talking about this episode is all of the exterior scenes were shot on the same sets as the exterior scenes of Mayberry.
Yeah, and I guess come to think of it, now that we've spent all this time talking about the idealized Mayberry, like I guess the imagery of like now it's like post-apocalyptic is kind of cool. Like it kind of adds to it if you are watching at that time and you do have that in your memory a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, these would probably look. The first time I saw the episode, I remember thinking, "Well, it looks really familiar." And I think that we do see it's not all the exteriors are redressed, so we don't. It doesn't say Floyd's Barbershop, but I think you do see Floyd's Barbershop at one point. And it's all on what was known as the RKO 40 Acres backlot in Culver City at that time, which Desilu had bought by that time. I
guess it helps that Cousin Virgil shows up here too,
That's true. Cousin Virgil does show up here. Michael J. Pollard appears in the episode as the leader of the Onleys. And Jean, and you get. I'm weirded out by these kids. I don't know.
They cast some interesting looking kids that it's like.
Well,
that had to be a choice.
Funny story. Almost all of the kids that you see, not necessarily the speaking part kids, but almost all the kids are the children of the actors on Star Trek and some of the crew members on Star Trek.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
So when near the end of his scene after he gets bonked by all the kids, he picks up a little girl, a little redheaded girl. That's Elizabeth Shatner, his daughter.
Oh, okay.
So his kids are there. I think Grace Lee Whitney's kids are there. I think kids from many of the cast members, except no Adam Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy specifically said, "Fuck no, I don't want my kid anywhere near Showbiz," and so he refused to bring his kid in that day. And then, of course, Adam Nimoy went on to become a director.
Well, every time you hear some like any interaction I hear about Leonard Nimoy with Star Trek is always sweet. Like, he sounds smart to me is I guess what I'm thinking about. He's always like, nah, he's like, oh, you should kill me in this movie, or he's like, I'm gonna make a movie about whales or whatever, like.
Oh yeah.
He's got good instincts, I think.
Right.
Know?
Yeah. Like, you're going to let me do another one? Okay. It's going to be about like whales. It's going to be about like this environmental thing that I feel really strongly about.
Yeah. Or like, I'm not going to put my kid in this, you know?
And they must have felt like, okay, but he was right, because I think adjusted for inflation, Star Trek 4 is still the highest grossing Star Trek film.
Yeah. It might be the second best Star Trek film.
I mean, he was a guy of a lot of personal integrity. Wait, what's the first?
Wrath of Khan, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
I feel like that's just...
I wouldn't argue necessarily.
Yeah, I feel like I have to say it, so I just say it. But I might like Star Trek 4 a little bit more.
He's a guy, Nimoy, I think, of a lot of personal integrity. But it's also one of those things where, and I know people like this, I might be one of these people, where they make up their mind and that's kind of it. And
okay, yeah.
It could be, hopefully they made a good decision, especially artistically. But if they didn't make a good decision, you're not going to talk about it. And
yeah.
I think there was a lot of going back and forth with him about whether Spock would live or die. And he's like, you got to kill me off. I'm done. And they're like, fine. So they set this whole thing in motion where he's going to get killed off. And then he's like, I just saw the rushes and the movie looks really good. I want to come back. And they're like, we just killed you. So they had to like shoot an extra scene where maybe he can come back. And so there was a lot of push and pull there. Now it turned into like 3 great films in the TOS film franchise. But I think, that caused distance between him and his son. It caused distance between him and Shatner for sure. They weren't on speaking terms when Nimoy passed away.
Oh, wow.
He's just,
I didn't know that actually.
He's just one of those, he's a creative guy. He's an intense personality, and he was a very good man. So that's a plus. But yeah, don't get on his bad side.
He's like the positive version of Harrison Ford, I feel like.
That's a great metaphor. That's perfect.
They're like two sides of the like not giving a shit coin.
Yeah. Whereas Ford can be bullied into doing things for money, and Nimoy's like, I'm just going to take pictures. I don't care.
He can be bullied into things, so he's the opposite in that regards. But then also, like, he's like very vocal about not wanting, or like his disdain for things.
Yeah.
Whereas like Nimoy, you just know it's true. Where he's like, I want to die, or like I want to wear this glove in.
It's Body Snatchers. Yeah.
Yeah, in Body Snatchers.
We can't talk him out of it. I don't know. Yeah.
He's like, whatever, it's cool.
And he wrote a book or two, that weren't exactly tell-alls, but he gave his opinions. But then he also just kind of shut up. Like he'd go off and just take pictures or do other things. And he wouldn't be on, like Harrison Ford, be like, I don't know what this fuck Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I hate this, but I'm going to make the CG dog movie anyway.
Because money. Right. Yeah. Oh, my God. For a guy who has no time but him and Tommy Lee Jones are tied for people that won't sanction your buffoonery. For him to make a movie starring an entirely CG dog who is represented on set by a literal human man walking around on all fours, how does he live with himself? Is it all just a put on? Is his grouchy thing a put on? Like, how does he square that?
I think it's like 25% a put on.
Okay. that's that margin in which he can make Call of the Wild.
Yeah, I sometimes love it, and I sometimes am like, what's going on with you, man?
In addition to those famous people's kids, there were some famous kids in this show. Kim Darby appears as the titular character Miri, and of course she was a young and up-and-coming actress at this point. In just a few years, she would appear as Maddie Ross in the classic film True Grit.
Oh, okay. She's the kid from that movie. I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, and she would go on to some other stuff. I mean, she was she's on TV. She was in a couple movies, but at this time she was seen as a really big up and coming star. And also, of course, our dude Michael J. Pollard was in it as well, who had done. Let's see. I mean, he'd done Mayberry and a couple other TV appearances. He'd done Tango and Cash, as discussed. That was later in his career. He was on like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. That's right. He was on The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., which is a spinoff from The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
And he's also
Wow.
he's in Bonnie and Clyde, which is a great movie if you haven't seen it. But he won a BAFTA award for his work in Bonnie and Clyde. So he's another like up and coming. And then after that he went on to many like character roles, like he was in Roxanne and Scrooged and like comedy films.
Oh, like later on in life.
Yeah. But the thing about it is, you would think, okay, you've got this like hot young ingenue coming in, and then you've got like this weird, not sure if he's taking this seriously or not, like Strasberg-esque character actor. You think it's going to be really easy to work with one guy, the other guy not so much. And it actually was backwards. Like, Kim Darby was really tough to work with on set, and Michael J. Pollard was like a total professional.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, in what way? Like, I could totally see him having a chill vibe.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well,
but what's her deal?
Well, so as far as he goes, like he did come in and he wanted to like, wear the army shirt all the time and like don't talk to him. He's getting into character, that sort of thing. But he was like knew his lines. He was on time, hit the mark. Went back to the trailer. They didn't have trailers, but he was like totally professional, and that's kind of surprised people who expected him to come in and like wow, just throw it around. And he just kept it all in the scenes. He does do that on the show, but not off set.
Yeah.
Whereas Kim Darby was. It's weird. I've read different things, but the impression I get is that she had like a big crush on William Shatner, and so even though she's supposed to kind of play it like, Miri is attracted to Kirk, she was taking it a little seriously, and so it'd be time to like start shooting, and they're like, "Where's Kim? Where's Kim?" And she's off in the corner like crying because she's just kind of lovelorn over William Shatner, which would make sense at the time. You've seen Judgment in Nuremberg. It's a good-looking guy. So it was hard to kind of get her straight and kind of drag her to set and get her to do some of these scenes.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see that. This is a hard. I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation too. So I can see that being complicated, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Now I don't know if we move on to True Grit and she's going crazy over John Wayne or something like that. But yeah, that's what I heard.
Well, at that point, they're different guys. You know what I mean?
I guess.
Or maybe they're not.
Well, no, is William Shatner different than John Wayne? Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's too bad here.
Maybe she was, going crazy over Glenn Campbell or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, their relationship is very weird in this episode, and it's actually that's probably the most.
If by weird you mean great, I agree.
Great. Okay.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because he's doing the Kirk. He's doing what he always does. And this dovetails into my theory that I espouse often on Enterprising Individuals, which is the myth of the sexy Kirk. Everybody thinks that Kirk is running around, famously misunderstood in the J.J. Abrams movies where he's like, doing cat girls two at a time. Kirk was never a super horn dog. Kirk knew that he was attractive and he was persuasive. And so if the obstacle, the bad guy or the person who had the code or whatever was a woman, he was not above using his masculine wiles to complete his mission. And that's usually we see him put the moves on an adult woman. In this case, he's doing it to a teenager, and he sort of moves into, I think he keeps it open romantically, but he moves it. He's got her sharpening pencils, he's got her like, "Hey, could you clear here's your mission. You got to clean this desk for us." And so he makes her feel useful and part of the group while kind of stringing her along.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, no.
The fact that he's using those tactics.
It's a good plan. It's just undeniably like it's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just very awkward. It's just such an awkward thing to watch, Like it's
It gets weird, I think, when Yeoman Rand gets jealous of Miri. That's when we start to get like, okay, show what's going on here.
Yeah, what's actually I think weirder than anything is when she's like, "I always want you to look at my legs."
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, this is remember, this is like near the end of Grace Lee Whitney's time on the show, for reasons that we won't get into here, but you can look up in her autobiography or just on Memory Alpha. But that was the dynamic between her and Kirk. Like, she was set up to be, the romantic interest for Kirk before they shot her out of a torpedo tube and got rid of her off the show. So I don't know. I think it's, it's not great. The sexual politics aren't amazing. She doesn't do a lot to help solve the cure problem. She's just basically there to babysit Miri. But I kind of like if that's if that's the situation that we have here, I think they use it to good effect, because that for her is what she's scared she's going to die, but it comes out in this, I'm attracted to you, but like, look at me now. Like I'm all fucked up.
It always, any episode where the two of them kind of have stuff that hints at that, it always just, maybe it's just because it's something that
it's just so abortive. It ended so soon in the show's run.
Yeah, you don't think of it normally, so like I feel like it sticks out. Not even that it's like bad. It's just like something I never fully remember because it's not something I think of fondly. So then when it happens, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I know it's like I intellectually know they did that, but factually remember that. But I don't know.
And they brought her down, for a reason for this, I guess, because there's a huge landing party in this episode. It's it's Spock, McCoy, Kirk, Rand, and then like they're security guys, but they're constantly called guards in the episode. They're like, guards.
They haven't fully figured it out.
No, they haven't at all. No. So yeah, and they don't really have anything to do. And it's weird, like, nothing really happens to them, right? Like, when Kirk is getting the shit kicked out of him by 12-year-olds, where are the guards?
Yeah, I feel like you expect them to, like, suffer more horrible...
Yeah, they're red shirts, right? They should go down.
Yeah.
We established kind of early, like when Kirk, shoots the one girl with the phaser, and she instantly dies. It's like, okay, well, we can't use guns here because we don't want to kill these kids. We want to help them. So they are like they're weaponless and communicatorless. But yeah, you'd think like two burly guys could run in and start throwing kids around.
I mean, Kirk throws some kids around.
Yeah, so. He has to. Yeah. Yeah, bonk, bonk, bonk.
On the head, yeah. So I like really I feel like that whole relationship that I was saying was weird with him and Miri. Like I really appreciate actually that it is something that's so. I feel like it's like one of the more challenging things that they've ever done on the show, honestly. And it's just maybe what's weird about it is it doesn't call. It's like subtle. It doesn't like call too much attention to it.
Yeah.
It's like obviously happening, but I don't know. I think that's harder than some of the other stuff they've done. Like it's such a weird situation for Kirk that I don't know. You'd think it'd have more emphasis or something.
I think that it works because it continues to evolve, and like I was saying before at the top of the segment, like I think that this episode is plotted a lot better than you think it would be. What's the premise? Disease kills. It's children of the corn or whatever. All the adults get killed. Yeah. The kids are still around. But it evolves, and his relationship with Miri evolves because he treats her that way, then kind of sidelines her, and she sees the way that she sees that she is just a child to him. And that drives her then to go, well, go fuck these guys. And she goes and tries to sell them out to the Onleys. But before that, we got that part where, this takes place over a couple days. And so everybody's getting the sores and they're all freaking out and they're starting to yell at each other. And then at one point she's trying to do the same thing. She's like, do you feel all right? He's like, no, I don't feel all right. None of us are all right. We don't feel all right. And she's like, oh, you're going to yell at me and you're going to like talk to this other lady. Like, screw you. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And then of course, once the problem's solved and they separate, then we've got that really weird scene at the very end where they're like, "Oh, I think she really loved you," or whatever, and he's like, "Well, I don't go for older women." It's like, what?
Yeah, that's
you need a one-liner to wrap this up.
What, it's like the thing for it. Has to have that Star Trek kind of like jokey ending.
Yeah.
But it does make it feel like do they? It made me think like, did they even view this as like that serious of a thing, like that weird of a thing? Because at the end they're like, haha, that was weird.
Oh, maybe the show is, or our theme is ignorance then in creation, because the people that wrote the Mayberry episode or wrote the show didn't know that their idyllic small town never existed and that they were helping to start a culture war 50 years later.
Yeah.
And the people that wrote the Star Trek thing are like, this makes sense, right? He's hitting on a 12-year-old. This makes sense, right? And then now we're like, oh my God.
Yeah, like I feel like if there was an episode of Star Trek Now where that was part of the premise, like
Riker
it would be
has
the whole premise.
Yeah, right. Riker's got to seduce. It's okay. Well, actually, we have that, don't we? In Star Trek Voyager, you've got Kes, who is 2 years old, and she's Neelix's girlfriend with all that I assume that entails. And we don't.
Well, that's weird too.
Ever really look into that, do we? No.
There's a Star Trek episode waiting to happen. I feel like if it hasn't, maybe it has like really happened. But I don't know.
She might be 18 on her planet, but on our planet she's 6. You're coming with us.
I just can't. Yeah, I can
Guards.
imagine a Star Trek villain being like, "What is 18 anyway?"
A villain. It's got to happen to our crew members. This is the cut Riker stat rape episode. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it can't be the crew because then it forever.
Well, tell it to Neelix. Tell it to the judge.
Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to say about Miri? I mean, I feel like we could just sit and recount everything that happens in the episode, but I just feel like it's a really great episode. I think people forget that the show was often very good, very early, and didn't take much time at all to find its feet. And, it's chilling at parts. I mean, you're pretty sure that the heroes are going to survive, but you kind of wonder how it's going to happen. There's, MVP. We forgot the amazing scene where McCoy has come up with a cure, but he's like, I don't know how much to give anybody and if it's going to work or not. And Spock's like, well, see what you can do, and leaves. And McCoy's like, should I? Well, of course I should. And then shoots himself up with the stuff. And he's like, ah! Yeah, that's just classic McCoy.
DeForest Kelley gets to go bonkers.
Yeah, everybody gets to go bonkers a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beaker full of death. Yeah.
I mean, I love this episode is like another. We talked about Darmok a while back, and we've talked about how that was the most Star Trek episode of Star Trek in a way because it is just so it's executing everything on such a level.
Yeah,
this is like the most Star Trek episode in a way, just because it's like so out there. Like all the concepts are crazy, but they tie together.
Yeah.
And then there's also it's also like rough around the edges, like they don't explain why they're on Earth 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah. Yeah.
Like it's kind of a hidden gem, but I kind of like would submit this as another like just very Star Trek episode because it is like a very fun, weird sci-fi adventure,
Yeah, and again, it was written by a guy named Adrian Spees, who was not really like a sci-fi guy. I mean, they used a lot of sci-fi authors and pitches and things like that early in the show, but he was just a guy who had written in TV since 1949. Like he just knew how to craft a TV show, and so he wrote on Hawaii Five-0 and Dr. Kildare and the Dick Powell Show. I don't know, things like that. And then the script was rewritten by the script editor, Stephen Karabetzos. But it was just like an example of like, we got a weird idea. If it's not sci-fi enough, we'll sci-fi it up a little bit. And there's stakes that we understand. There's tension, and then there's also great only on Star Trek moments, like Captain Kirk hitting on a 12-year-old, or getting the shit beat out of him by 12-year-olds, or there's that scene where they're throwing rocks at Spock, and they're like, nah, 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 nah. which I guess they have like parallel taunting development as well on their planet, but
that's a timeless taunt.
Yeah,
you know?
that just works wherever you go. They do that, but yeah, it's just solid as the rocks they throw at Spock.
It contains the phrase "beaker of death."
Beaker full of death. Yeah,
yeah.
he's so tart. You know, well, you got to cure this, and we're gonna get out of here. And he's like, "Is that all? We got 5 days. Like I can do other stuff." So salty, good stuff.
This is good stuff.
Well, something that makes Trek is the technology of the future. We see that in this episode where we got to get our hands on that biocomputer. And it facilitates what happens in the show. But just as often, it's the complication that they're dealing with. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies. We add what we get to the non-Trek media, and we subtract it from the Trek episode, and we see how each would be different. We call this our technological exchange. Here's our list of technology. We've got phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drive, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids. And consulting our high-tech random number selector, we come up with the number 9, advanced medical tech. Why does our dice want to kill us?
Well, this is, I get. Well, that totally ruins Miri for sure. They're just done for.
Okay, you know what? We're professionals, so let's handle this. First of all, the Andy Griffith episode Cousin Virgil. If we had the advanced medical tech of Star Trek, how'd it be different?
I just, maybe. Well, I was gonna say, like, maybe, society would just be better in general, if everyone had, like, healthcare through advanced medical technology. But then again, we're already experiencing, a idealized version. So, like, no one's really struggling or sick ever, really, in the Andy Griffith Show, right?
I guess that's true, unless it's part of the plot. Presumably, if, as you opined before, Virgil is different because of neurological reasons, if he's atypical, neuroatypical, then maybe we would have a better way to diagnose that. Not that it needs to be treated, but maybe we would have devices or techniques that would help him adjust better to society. Maybe there just wouldn't be a problem with Virgil. He'd just be a guy who was a little shy and introverted.
Yeah. If society has that and it's better, they would realize from the start that he needs to be making these wooden cowboys.
Right.
Because that's what he's good at.
Right, yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to polish keys. Like, we've got advanced medical technology. We don't need to polish keys.
I also think that maybe Virgil would never get the awakening that he does in the episode, because if we've got advanced medical technology and Andy picks up Otis off a park bench, he could just hit him with, whatever the Mad Dog version of Narcan is, and then he's not drunk anymore, and he's like, go home, Otis. So
yeah, or maybe,
Otis
who knows what's going on in Otis's life?
Otis is not a drunk. He definitely isn't locked in the cell in order to give Virgil his time to shine, and we realize that Virgil has potential, that moment wouldn't happen.
What's going on in Otis's life? Like, why is he a drunk?
I don't think we ever really get into that. It's not The Simpsons. On The Simpsons, we do an episode about why Barney is this way. He would continue to be that way, but, we would find out why.
Yeah. Yeah, see, maybe if Otis had, maybe... I don't know. Maybe that's how he's got issues in his life, and that's how he medicates. But maybe
yeah, and that's all
maybe
he
if we
get
had advanced
in
medical
Mayberry
technology,
is just,
he wouldn't have to
Ripple or something. Yeah,
or maybe he gets some space drugs.
You're right. Yeah, maybe he would be able to get his hands on some hard stuff, some tricordrazine or something like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that would be a whole nother episode.
The dice doesn't ruin things, we do. Let's talk about Miri. If we take away advanced medical technology, what happens? Now, I want to say first, they don't do it all themselves, right? They pick up these notes from the researchers before who had died to the plague.
Yes.
And presumably they use those to start them off on their development of a cure.
And that was contemporary.
Yes, it was a glass microscope, right. So if a solution could be found through modern medical circa 1960 means, maybe they would be able to synthesize it, get the centrifuge out, get the autoclave out, get the instruments and the beakers and the Erlenmeyer flasks out. Maybe they would be able to synthesize a cure. That wouldn't be delivered by hypospray, for sure.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if it wasn't Star Trek, it could be there could be just a contemporary movie or show where that happens,
Oh, like a Michael Crichton situation.
Yeah.
All the adults are dying. Yeah, it's a theme park.
It's got to be a theme park.
Yeah, everything's
too.
a theme park.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm sure there's plenty of there's your Walking Deads and all this stuff. So we don't need another show like this, but yeah, I could totally see that getting solved if only they had more time. I don't know what stopped the scientists. They just all died.
I guess they just died too fast. Yeah, although Kirk and everybody beams down and they've got like 5 days tops. So I'm not sure. I mean, this is kind of why we're doing this episode now, just like because it's about disease. I'm not sure what the vector is exactly, but if they couldn't get it done in 5 days.
Seems like the plan. Well, yeah, 5 days. That's not enough time to teach children
how to. Okay, so
how to
stir this
science.
beaker. Yeah.
Stir the beaker. It's a beaker of death.
Stir this. Be careful with the beaker of death. I'm surprised that there's not a YA series. There probably is, but I don't know of a YA series where there's, say, a disease that kills all the parents, and so it's just like kids. And maybe the parents are still around, but they're like zombies or something, and so the kids got to take care of it. You think that'd be like...
That's not like...
For the youth.
Divergent.
Yeah, Divergent, that kind of thing.
All the rents are dead. The parental
they call
units.
Them the rents, yeah. But now they're coming back. They're raising the rents. So they're all...
all right. I'm writing down the rents.
Did you just quit
right
the
now. No, I'm gonna become a famous YA author.
Called
I think.
Rents, the Rents series.
We did it, I think.
Now that I think about it, that does sound kind of familiar. That might exist already. So nobody sue me for that.
That seems like day one as a kid, something you think about. I would know. I was a kid.
Sometimes those ideas are the best ideas that just nobody's thought to put it to paper.
Yeah. Keep it simple, I always say.
Yeah. Well, I think we satisfied as best we could.
We nailed it. Yeah,
we did it.
That was actually the best role we could have got.
We can't keep getting away with it. You dodged another bullet. Should we tell people what's coming up on the next episode of BackTrekking?
Yeah, I'm very excited about the next episode because I think we're going to settle an age-old rivalry. I don't even know.
Okay.
Totally unbiased here, but we're going to be watching Star Trek: The Motion Picture and talk about how it was inspired by Star Wars and compare it to the original Star Wars film. So it'll be a battle of the franchises almost.
70s sci-fi at the Cineplex.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm very pumped to revisit both of these movies that I've revisit all the time anyway.
That's kind of a very special episode. Those are the two titans.
Yeah. So
we could talk.
It'll be a good time.
We can talk too about the film series that they both spawned and how I think we're both in the position with Star Wars and Star Trek where like the fans hate more of the movies than they like at this point. Like, aren't we upside down on Star Trek movies? Like, I think there's more bad Star Trek movies than good.
We might be, but I think so there might be more bad Star Trek movies than there are good ones.
But thanks to J.J. Abrams, now Star Wars finds itself in a similar predicament.
Yeah. I would also say there are probably more good Star Trek movies than Star Wars movies, so maybe it evens out. I don't know.
By raw numbers or by, like, ratio?
Numbers. I guess maybe just by virtue of there being more Star Trek movies. I don't know.
But if we're like, I mean, opinions vary, but let's say, the original trilogy is good, the next two trilogies both not good. So that's like 1 out of 3, right? So does Star Trek movies, do they beat 1 out of 3?
Well, the one trilogy, 2, 3, and 4 is perfect.
So you got 3
I
there,
think.
yeah. And there's how many total? 13, 14? We'll know next week or next time.
I think the TNG trilogy is solid.
Well, I guess we'll have to talk about that. Well, we'll save it.
Right.
We'll save it for next time. And that's it for this week's BackTrekking. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, tell a friend and follow us at BackTrekking on Twitter. And tell us also what you think that we should talk about in future episodes, because it helps. We're going to take a little break, actually, after this. We won't be gone long, probably just maybe an extra week or two as we get things settled. But then we'll be back talking about Star Wars and Star Trek. Gooey, tell the people where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at GooeyFame, and I got all the links to all my other shows and stuff there. Go check them out if you're bored right now.
Yeah, which you might be. Yeah. And I'm at K-A-1-I-B-A-N. That's Caliban on Twitter. And also you can find the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. And we've got plenty of episodes of all kinds of stuff. If you like pop culture, check us out. And that's it for us for this week. We will see you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.